Good morning, everybody. Your boy's back with another YouTube video. Eric Janicki recently went on Ben Pakulski podcast and they talked about quite a few interesting things. And one of the things that interested me the most was the discussion of range of motion and why Eric trains the way he does and the criticism that he gets online for that training style. Eric Janicki, if you don't know, is a pro bodybuilder and a fitness influencer, and the dude is massive. I think currently he weighs at about 275 pounds, which is roughly 124 kilos. And his peak natty weight was 184 pounds, which is roughly 83 kilos. So the dude was really lean. He had an amazing physique when he was natural. And even now, just for comparison. So he weighs 124 kilos. Just for the sake of comparison, I weigh at about 75 kilos. And that's me after 6 months of dieting. Before I started dieting, I weighed 82 kilos, right? And already when I was going to work, I was working as a software engineer, and going to work, I felt a little out of place because you look at other people and you're like, okay, maybe I should train maybe less often because you don't see that kind of passion for fitness and bodybuilding in other people. And you're like, maybe I should do it like that, right? But then you go on social media and you're like, you see all the craziness and you're like, okay, I'm not that big. I'm definitely not that big. You feel small, right? And even now, I train in a bodybuilding gym, and I'm probably the smallest guy in the gym. So there's a lot of room for growth. But eventually, I digress, but eventually I chose the fitness and bodybuilding route because I just want to train more and train heavier and get bigger. But anyways, the dude weighs 124 kg and he's like super big. And on top of that, he's known for his viral running videos. If you watch any of those. Or when he shares his training videos and he's training his back and he's sort of like exaggerating the stretch and like going like ultra deep. And he gets a lot of criticism because of that. But in this video, at some point, they start talking about the best range of motion.
Yeah, the biggest mistake I made throughout my career at certain times was trying to shorten the ranges because I was like, maybe I can shorten this range and still get away with the same or get the same benefit. And that was just a horrible mistake. Like I shortened my hack squats by 20 degrees. You wouldn't notice to the naked eye, but I knew my hips started to hurt. My knees started to hurt. I'm like, what's going on here? You go back to this full range. You're like, oh, did I grow more? I don't know. But like, I can tell you objectively that my knees and my hips are better when I'm using these full ranges that I watched you do yesterday. Mm-hmm. So like you've landed on something useful. There's some nuance here though, right? So the challenge with...
What is the most optimal range of motion for building muscle or like for growing stronger? We don't really seem to have a definite answer to that question. There is some research, but anecdotally, different Mr. Olympia champions, they all had different training styles. Let's say from Ronnie Coleman to Jay Cutler. All these top bodybuilders. They have different training styles in terms of volume, intensity, exercise selection, range of motion, focusing on the squeeze or the stretch. There are a lot of factors. You see, different people are doing different things and they're getting amazing results. And we don't really know what the best range of motion is for hypertrophy. It seems to be like everybody has their own sort of style and you got to find out what works for you best. However, personally, I agree with them. Personally, I try to really focus on being strong throughout the entire range of motion, doing the entire full range of motion, Full-ROM training. And the reason isn't because of hypertrophy. I feel like when you keep your rep range between say 10 to 15 and you try to be strong and you try to do the whole range of motion, first of all, you have to decrease the weight, right? Otherwise, let's say you're squatting and you're like, if you're going all the way down, ass to the grass, as opposed to like stopping at 90 degrees when your thighs are parallel to the floor, right? You have to decrease the weight. Otherwise, you're not able to get that many reps. And a byproduct of that style of training is that you put less strain, excessive pressure on your joints, your knees, your ankles, your hips, your low back, right? And as a result, you avoid injuries. Plus, when you go all the way down and you really overload your muscles in a stretched or lengthened position, you're training your knees, right? Your knees will probably go over your toes, and that is actually, it's proven by science that it's healthy for your knees, given that you manage the load, right? So you give your body more time to adapt to the load, right? So you care about your form, you care about your technique, controlling the eccentric and controlling, like being in charge and in control throughout the entire range of motion. That seems to be better in terms of preventing injuries, but also making your tendons, your connective tissues, your joints, your bones, your joints, your bones, your ligaments stronger.
You go into a little bit of rotation, things happen. So I just want to sort of throw out that nuance as we transition into what training looks like for you. So I watched you do these leg presses yesterday and these hack squats and these leg exercises, and it wouldn't be possible to get any more range of motion. You go so far as to put a pad behind you. Well, it's a compliment, man. Like, you go so far as to put a pad behind you so you don't bottom out the machine, and you're taking your knee, your hip, and your ankle through its entire excursion, and you're strong. So most people go through the entire excursion and they throw it out of that weight, or they bounce it out of that position. Like, no, you're like, no, I stop, and I'm strong from that position, which is in perfect alignment to what I teach. Or what I believe is accurate. It's like, you got to get strong at every inch of the range.
And indeed, the way he is performing the hack squat is really incredible. It's impressive how much load is lifting at the same time, going full range of motion, knees completely over the toes. And I mentioned earlier, that's actually pretty healthy. I mean that when you do that over a long period of time, you're basically training your knees, and your knees are getting stronger and stronger and more resilient over time.
Practical. I think my range of motion has improved over time, and I don't do any mobility outside of my training, and that's why I kind of preach this to be a pretty effective modality for people that have limited time, because if you can use a little less weight and push through a little bit more lengthened range of motion, you're going to create these stretch adaptations, almost like a forced partner stretch. And so I kind of just kept playing with it, like, how far can I take this? And my ankle mobility kept improving. My hip mobility kept improving. My lower back pain went away. My knee pain went away. There was times when my knee pain would be so bad that, like, just like if I sat down for too long, like if we were sitting here for, let's say, an hour, to get up, there's no way I would just be like, oh, let's get up. I would literally like use the side of the chair and kind of like, because the pain would probably be pretty extensive after sitting in a position where I could literally sit here for the next 2 hours and go and dunk a basketball. Like, that's how like healthy my joint.
So Eric's saying that ever since he changed his training style to this sort of focusing on the lengthened part of the movement, and in general, full-ROM training, a lot of the pain across his body and his joints went away. Knees, ankles, low back, the hips. And what's more interesting is that he doesn't even do any sort of mobility or like he doesn't have a warm-up routine other than going through the exercise, literally jumping into the first exercise and warming up with that. That doesn't really work for me. I mean, I kind of understand that like he's been training for maybe like 20 years and his body has adapted. Like, he had pain back in the day, but now he doesn't have any pain, and he's sort of like attributing all of that to his training style. However, I don't think what works for him will work for you. I certainly tried his training style and I got plenty of injuries everywhere in my knees, low back pain, like ankles, hips, everywhere. And so that's why I literally have a 15-minute routine for my leg day, or like a similar, or or like a 15-minute routine, or like 20 minutes warm up for my chest or push days. I seriously, like, I cannot jump into like a pressing exercise and start like pumping iron without properly warming up. And so you probably know that Eric is an enhanced athlete. So I think there are two other factors at play here. The first one is his genetics, right? So what works for him won't necessarily work for you. He's got this special genetics that allows him to do this crazy range of motion, going super deep into the stretch, like without hurting himself. And the other reason is that, well, he's taking PEDs, and we know that PEDs help with performance, with recovery. They help lubricate the joints. So if you see Eric Janicki perform an exercise in a specific way, that doesn't mean that you should replicate that, right? You have to take your time. Like, you have to see what works for you. Plus, if you're a natural lifter, you really can't. I don't think it's possible to be able to train like Eric Janicki with the full range of motion without being injured, unless you have the very special genetics.
I'm not saying chase the pump. I'm not saying that, pump is indicative of necessary growth. But now, as we increase that range of motion, the amount of torque required from get to B to A is going to increase. So that weight is going to become heavier from a mechanical perspective. And so if we can do that, and it's not so heavy, and then we start to create those, you get used to that style of training, you're not going to get that like damage that's highly associated with Full-ROM training. Sure, if you do it for the first time with me on a leg day, yeah, you're going to be pretty sore, but you do it 5 times, 10 times.
So I mentioned earlier in the video that Full-ROM training won't directly give you more hypertrophy or muscle growth, right? But indirectly it does, and he explains why. You have to decrease the weight in order to be able to perform the movement like in its entirety, going through the full range of motion without getting injured. Like, you have to decrease the weight, and as a result, you won't get injured. And when you don't get injured, you stay in the gym for longer and you build more muscle, right? Because think about it, like, for me, training and going to the gym is such a big part of my life right now that if you take it away from me, like, what is left? I literally quit my job to like pursue this full time. And if I'm injured and I'm not able to go to gym for like a month, what can I do? Like, play video games, drink, and go out and party? That can entertain me for like a week. But then after that, I'll be bored out of my mind. And then there are going to be mental issues and whatnot. So it is really important, at least for me. Like, I don't want to be injured. That's why, instead of like lifting explosively, because I'm like 31 years old now, like, I cannot afford to train like how I was when I was, say, 21, right? I started to experience these aches and pains and injuries from like 24, 25. When I was 25, I had my first like big injury, low back injury, which, like, made me quit the gym for about a month, and I had to go to a doctor to get that fixed. So one of the benefits of Full-ROM training is that you'll really decrease the risk of injury. And he also mentions the pump. Like, seriously, when you're doing Full-ROM, let's say you're training your legs and you're like going full range of motion and really stretch the quads, you'll notice after your set that your legs are super pumped. And it doesn't mean that pump is not indicative of muscle growth. But for example, if you're training your rear delts, right, and your rear delts are super pumped, right, what does that mean? It means that you're actually targeting that muscle, right? So it's really pleasant, to be honest. Pump is one of the better things I love about the gym, is that you see yourself so much bigger. It's like you seeing yourself 6 months into the future. And additionally, if you haven't done Full-ROM training, if you haven't like focused on like the lengthened part of the movement, right, and the squeeze at the same time, and like really going through the motion, and if you try it for the first time, one thing you'll notice is that you'll be significantly more sore. Like, you're gonna experience a crazy amount of soreness, right? But that shouldn't discourage you, because your body will adapt. Your body will adapt to the soreness, and then the soreness won't be as bad next time. So you have to keep going, right? And the soreness will be manageable given that you're smart with the volume, right? Given that you're not overdoing, you're not overtraining, right? And that's really important. And I explained this in a previous video that is on my channel about training style, how you should train, and the best split.
You're going to have the same level of soreness I have right now after, like, what most people would be like, watch me and Carlos train us to be like, dude, you're going to be sore for a month. But for me, I'm like 3.5 out of 10. It'll probably be gone by tomorrow. I could probably train legs, which I will again on Saturday, and be completely fine.
So he's saying that he can train legs like that, super intense, high volume, and he's going to recover and like going through the full range of motion and like crazy deep stretch. And then he's going to recover in like 2-3 days, and he can train legs again. And in fact, training legs is legs are his favorite body part to train. I'm going to argue that it is not the same thing for everybody else, especially for natural lifters. Certainly, it's not the same thing for me because, think about it. Like, I can train my arms, like my biceps and triceps, every day now. Like in the beginning, yes, I got sore from training, but no matter what I do, my arms will recover. My shoulders never get sore. I can train them every day, right? These are small muscle group, but like legs are different. Like my legs are so much stronger, and I have to lift heavier and heavier in order to stimulate growth. Otherwise, they're not going to grow, right? So if you're really serious about training legs as a natural lifter, you're gonna put a lot of pressure on your connective tissue. So there are things other than your muscles, your knees, your hips, your lower back, your ankles, and they need more time to recover. So like I am personally not able to train in like 2-3 days. So again, for Eric, it could be like the long period of time that I've been doing the same style of training that has made him be able to train like this, or it could be his genetics, or more importantly, I think it's the PEDs, right? So you cannot really compare yourself to someone who's taking performance enhancing drugs, steroids and whatnot. They literally increase your recovery rate. Like I mentioned this earlier in the video.
Yeah. So you should not try to push to my range of motion day one. You're hit, like you will literally, like I will have somebody that tries to do this with me, and like it's super light weights, and I'm like have to be like no, do not do that. Well, they'll like their lower back will be so far off the thing because their hip and glute and adductor mobility is just so sorry, don't want to swear, so bad that they're just getting so rolled off. And I'm like no, we have to take it down progressively. It's going to take you probably a month, 2 months, 3 months doing this over and over safely before you can push to that, like even close to the range of motion I'm getting to. This took me years to do.
So what he's saying here is really important. You see Eric Janicki doing crazy flies, like I watch him perform the flies that way and go like so deep into the stretch, and it literally makes my shoulders hurt. Or like the other variations of like chest exercises that he does with a dumbbell. I don't think that, like he literally says that don't try to replicate what he does. Like it's gonna take you a while, like 1, 2, 3, 4 months, maybe like over a year to be able to reach that range of motion, right? So, and then you're gonna have to see what works best for you. At this point of the video, they're pretty much done with the discussion of range of motion, and they start talking about bodybuilding specific topics. And this part of the video doesn't really concern natural lifters or natural bodybuilders. Because they're talking about the importance of like having your midsection and your abs in check and like avoiding the bubble gut. I'll put a picture of like a bodybuilder with a bubble gut on the screen so that you know what I'm talking about. But I don't think natural lifters have those problems, but still I found this topic pretty interesting.
Man, I was playing the size game like a lot of people trying to get bigger. My waist sort of got out of control, and I talked about that a lot. And then my last year of competing, I brought it down, I think 7 inches or something like that on stage, like a lot. And it's relatively simple to do, and I think everyone can do it to some level.
So it is really important for bodybuilders to try to keep their midsection in check and do all these vacuums and ab training, specific ab training, because they're eating so much. Like some bodybuilders are probably eating 6,000 calories, 7,000 calories per day just for maintenance, just to in order to be able to like build muscle in off season. Like for a natural lifter, 6,000 calories, you don't need 6,000 calories to build muscle, right? You're only ever going to like get fat. Like you're not going to build, you're not going to put on more muscle by eating more. All of that's going to be fat. But bodybuilders, because of their use of anabolics, they can afford to eat that much. Plus, a lot of the times you see they're lifting super heavy and they're wearing these special weightlifting belts and they're not paying attention. So it really damages their abdomens, right? And then there are several implications. For example, they get bubble gut, their abs are overdeveloped, or worse, they get hernia. And for example, Wesley Vissers recently posted an update of him post surgery. In the video, he was struggling to get out of his chair, and he basically explains what hernia is in the video.
Hernia surgery. If you can see that still, I showed you guys yesterday. It's basically what happens is when you train very hard and you eat a lot of food throughout the years, the weakest part in your abdominal wall is your belly button, basically. So if there's a lot of pressure there, year in, year out, it can start to weaken and protrude. If you leave it untreated, it can get worse and worse. When it's fat, it doesn't really matter, but it can actually be a part of the intestines as well. I'm not going to be the one waiting for it to get worse.
We lose control of our transverse abdominis, which is effectively this like cinch that can, vacuum your stomach in. So the reason we lose control of that is we just don't ever pay attention to it. As a bodybuilder, we're eating so constantly that our stomach's always full, so those muscles become flaccid and loose. So I was always aware of when I started my day, I was doing vacuums. Before and after every meal, I was doing vacuums, so I would reactivate those muscles. I obviously did a little more portion control, just because, like, man, when you're full, you're letting everything out. You're like, I just never let that happen. So I was like, I always want to be able to be sure that I can activate my transverse abdominis, be able to suck my stomach in, hold it there, and that becomes my default position. I trained abs every single day for that year. I also did vacuums every single day.
It is interesting that he says he was training abs every day, because oftentimes in bodybuilding communities, I hear that you don't need to train abs every day, because if you train your abs, you're going to thicken them up. You're going to have a bigger sort of like waist, right? You're going to have a wider waist. For example, microhernia.
Should you train obliques, or does it make your waist too thick?
Well, you're training a muscle. So I want you to answer that. If you train a muscle, what does the muscle do? Right? So be smart about that. And again, it's a great question for you guys that don't know, but muscles don't get smaller because you train them. They get bigger because you train them. If you're training your abs all season, right? All year, forget it. I'm training my abs all year. I've said this numerous times, and you can go find these videos. You're going to get a thicker waistline. Well, wait a minute. You're supposed to train your abs all year. Who says that? You're thickening them up. Abs are such an easy body part. Don't get so caught up into, listen, you squat, your abs are working. You deadlift, your abs are working. If you're doing chest properly, you're still contracting your abs. So the abs are getting stuff done. But if you directly train them, you're going to get a thicker waist.
I don't think that's an issue for naturals. Michael Hearn, well, obviously he's not natural, even though he claims to be natural. I don't think he's natural. But like we have top natural physiques who are training their abs like every day, and they have a completely flat stomach, really narrow waist. An example of that is Jason Bjornsson. So like, I don't think practicing vacuum really is a must for natural lifters. However, I personally like to do it because like pulling off the vacuum in like some of the bodybuilding poses, like I'm not competing, and I don't think I'll compete anytime soon, but I just like to be able to pull off the sort of like the vacuum. I think it's very aesthetically pleasing, but you're going to have a lot of muscle to be able to like actually like show off like a good vacuum. You need to have a lot of like lats and chest and arms and everything. But I saw a video of like Mike Sommerfeld. Like he's got an insane physique. I think he's going to win this year's Mr. Olympia in classic division. He's got such a small waist and then super wide shoulders and like a massive chest and back. And he was practicing basically this sort of like vacuum. And if you're not familiar like with these stuff and the whole bubble gut and hernia and like why he's doing it, you will probably think that why on earth a dude would like post a video of him like doing such things, and he's like almost naked, like he's barely wearing anything. But there's a reason behind that, and it's like it takes a lot of discipline. Imagine like you have to do it when you wake up, throughout the day, before your meals, so that you can keep a vacuum for like an extended period of time, right? That's a lot of discipline.
And so that was like, I did it probably a couple hours a day of just like vacuums and vacuums and vacuums and posing and vacuums, and like I could hold vacuum for 10 minutes and not be tired, not be breathing.
That's incredible.
Just practice, right? And so when it's obviously like I'm a dog with a bone. Same with the calves, man. How I built my legs. It wasn't like I had genetically blessed legs, but I also was like mental about it.
So creating a vacuum and holding it is one way for training your abs. And like I said before, natural lifters might not be interested in that sort of training, but like you can train your abs in two different ways, right? And nobody explains that better than this dude behind Squat University.
You should ditch sit-ups unless you're a bodybuilder. For most people, they're not the best way to train your core. If you want your abs to show, that mostly comes down to lowering body fat. But if you want your core to do its real job, here's what you should do instead. Your abs aren't just for looks. Their real purpose is acting like a transmission system, helping you generate more power through your arms and legs. Your core also protects your spine. It works to prevent excessive motion when you're lifting weight. Now, the spine is designed to move, but it's not designed to move a lot when lifting. That's why athletes try to maintain a neutral spine when deadlifting and stiffen their spine in place if out of neutral. Excessive spine movement under load in the long term is a bad idea. So instead of training spine flexion movement like sit-ups, train spine flexion moment, resisting movement. One of the best exercises for this, the stir the pot. It'll light up your six-pack while teaching your core to stabilize your spine.
If you're not following Squat University, I would highly recommend you follow that channel. He shares incredible information for fixing the injuries, rehab, avoiding injuries, what are the best warm-up routines, really valuable information. Exercises such as planks, Russian twists, or even like creating this vacuum aren't for growing your abs, right? They are meant for making your abs do what they're supposed to do what they're meant to do, and be functional. And their function is to give you strength for your other exercises, because you're using your abs literally when you're bench pressing or you're squatting, you're using your abs. But if you want your abs to grow, first of all, if you want visible abs, the number one exercise that you should do is put the fork down, right? You have to watch your diet. You have to watch what you're eating, because for the most part, abs are built in the kitchen. But if your abs are visible, but you want to make them more defined, right? If your abs are lacking in terms of like size, you're going to have to train abs like literally any other muscle group. You have to go through the entire range of motion. So you have to pick specific exercises like sit-ups, hanging leg raises, which make your abdominal muscles go through the entire range of motion. So you want to stretch your abs, and then you want to squeeze your abs, and that's how you make them grow. But like I said, planks is an exercise, or like dead bug. Like I usually do these exercises before my leg day because they help with core stability. You want to make sure that you're not going to get injured while you're doing heavy squats. And so this brings me to the end of the video. That's it for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, make sure to like the video. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.